bad boy back again.
4, 3, 2, 1.
So I bought this Pulaski last week. Thought I would renovate it. It's an old Forest Service axe. The handle was pretty rough. The body of the Pulaski itself needs some work. So I thought I would restore it, try to return it to what it once was. It's got this metal rivet drilled through it, so use the die grinder to grind the head off so that I can remove the handle. I'll use a little punch and pop it through, pull it out the other side. Someone really gave this thing the business. I think there were 2 screws, 2 wedges, a couple of nails down in here. So I've got to remove these, and then I'm able to pull the head off. I'll just use my drill and polish the red paint off, some of the rust. But it'll start looking nice. Now this little grubbing tool has some unique angles on it, so it's pretty difficult to get into all the grooves there, but I just use some sandpaper to help remove all the old paint and rust. And I think it cleaned up pretty good. You can see underneath where it was a little more difficult to get the red paint off, but it eventually all comes off. Here's my handle. Take it out and try to whittle it down a little bit so that it'll fit tightly into the head of the axe. Significant gap, so I've definitely got some cutting to do. Use my draw blade, and this probably took about an hour to finish up. I ended up pulling it out of this vise and sitting on some steps and really getting after the end of the handle, but eventually it fits. Here it's seated pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with it. So now I'll cut off the extra pieces that extends out the top. If I had it to do over, I would leave that on until after it was painted. And then here's the wood wedge. I'll just pound inside to kind of fill some of that extra gap. I tried to pound it in until I heard a solid seated sound in there. And then I'll cut the remainder of the wedge off. And I'll use the die grinder to seat the wood flat. Like I said, if I had it to do over, I would leave that extended until after I painted the head. And then I found a nice mild blade for the die grinder so that I could polish it up a little bit better. Still some decent sized scratching in there, but most of the rust came out. A lot of the pitting came out, and I wanted to do that so that I could prevent it from rusting in the future. Putting the wedge in the top, it splits the wood so that the head of the axe doesn't fall off when you swing it. And I'm going to replace that old screw with a rivet. So I'm going to drill through the handle and put a brass rivet in there. Alright, so I heated up this side, hammered a small head onto it, and then shoved it through. Then I warmed up this side and hammered that flat. So it made a rivet on each side. And now I'm just trying to pound it flat so that it doesn't catch on anything or hook anybody. Back to this side and pound this even more flat. So it's like a nail head on both sides. Pretty secure. Keep the head on. Turned out pretty good, I think. A little nicer looking than a modified screw. Works for me. Then I've got a fine pad and polished it up the best that I could. Tried to get as many of the pittings out that I could. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I thought about leaving it bare metal, maybe putting some kind of a shellac over it. But I don't. Now sand the handle down. It had a couple of teeth marks. Tried to keep that down by wrapping a rag around it, putting in the vise. But got a few marks, a few bumps. So tried to sand those down. Make the handle look nice. At least initially. Then I've got the boiled linseed oil, and I'll apply 2 or 3 coatings over the next few days to protect the wood. Makes it look nice. And make sure to get the top as well. I'm going to wrap some painter's tape around it so that I can paint it without getting it everywhere. Got some primer here and some red paint. I was hesitant, but I went ahead and did it. Sure looked nice with the metal, but it's more traditional with the red on it. I had originally sprayed some primer on the top, you can see. Went back, sanded that back down, put some tape over it. It just wasn't right. I need to be able to access that wood up on top and keep it lubricated. So I went back and corrected that. And now for the red paint. I ended up putting 3 coats of the high gloss red paint. Looks almost too nice to even consider using, but that was the idea. Make it traditional looking, and I plan to use it in the front yard next year, digging water lines for a sprinkler system. Pretty pleased. Go back and take that tape off and you can see some of the primer on here that I didn't get completely off. Had a little overspray where I had taped on the handle, so I went back and fixed that as well, but overall pretty pleased with how it turned out. The rivet looks nice. It's not that big screw head that was originally on there. Nice solid handle. Very happy. Do some grubbing with that thing. Thanks for stopping by.